Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. The 1960s radicals did not leave their radicalism in the 60s. Unfortunately, they're up to the same old tricks, and it just got a newer, younger face. Tonight, the story the media will just not show you. The people behind these grassroots protests of the Arizona law. Let's go. America. Last week, I showed you this, the playbook of the left. It is the manifesto from the Weather Underground. These guys exemplified what it meant to be a 1960s radical. These are the people I remember my grandfather talking about. They were the freaks. They hated America, and they would do whatever it took to overthrow America, and their words, institute communism and a dictator. You know, 2 years ago, I would have said this is crazy talk. 2 years ago, I would have made fun of these people. Don't do it. These people believed back then, and they believe now, the ends justify the means. That's why they bombed the home of a judge in a Black Panther trial. Kill the pigs, written in graffiti. They bombed the headquarters of the NYCPD. They also, of course, conducted sniper attacks on the Cambridge police, which is weird, because I think I've heard that one before recently. They robbed a Brinks armored car, killing 2 cops in the process. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Most of these radicals were part of SDS, which is Students for a Democratic Society. Students for a Democratic Society. Remember, democratic society is not what we are. It's code language. It goes all the way back to Lenin, a democratic society. Now, this is the group that birthed the Weather Underground, SDS. Now they occupy positions of great power in America. But they're just kind of behind the scenes. But we know now exactly how this is all working. These are some of the former members of the old SDS. There's Wade Radke. This is the guy who is a former SDS member. He founded ACORN and SCIU. There's a dynamic duo, huh? Then we have this guy. This is this one is actually Andy Stern. Andy Stern, you know Andy Stern, former SDS. He is also the former president of SCIU, but he also is now on the President's Fiscal Responsibility Commission, which is great because his old buddy, also a former Weather Underground member, Jeff Jones, is SDS, and he also is working now with the Apollo Alliance. He's the guy helping spending the stimulus bill here in New York. You got that nice stuff, didn't you? Okay, now, we have the President's spiritual advisor, who we'll get to later on in the program. He's a member of SDS, Jim Wallace. In case you missed it, you should really go back and watch, because the evidence is quite overwhelming. You'll see that the radical thought of these people and the powers in and around the current administration are a little staggering. The only argument that the left could resort to over the weekend was, oh, that happened a long time ago. How? Well, I feel much better, especially since none of these guys ever admitted to any turning points. No change in belief, none whatsoever. In fact, let me show you something. I showed you this last week. It's a book. This is a book for young radicals. It's a Sing a Battle Song, the revolutionary poetry, statements, and communiques of the Weather Underground. It's edited by Bernadine Dorn, Bill Ayers, and Jeff Jones. Bill Ayers, Jeff Jones. Bernadine Dorn's Bill Ayers' wife. Now, in this, they talk about how they, I like this, each of us have included our reflections on that period, and while we cringe at the overheated rhetoric and the bombast, Bernadine's words, we all rejoice at the militant resistance to war, racism, and imperialism. That's capitalism. Now, when I showed you this last week, I thought, gee, this was printed in 2006. Why did they print this in 2006? Who's picking this up in 2006? Well, look what happened. 2006. These former SDS members started something new. On January 16th, 2006, the new SDS. You know what's interesting is January 16th, 2006, that's 2 years. 2 years before Barack Obama was elected, but that's about when the campaign was starting up. And you know what else is interesting? January 16th, that's Martin Luther King Day. So a book for new activists. Old activists start the new activist group 2 years before the election on Martin Luther King Day. Boy, it must drive them crazy that I'm at the Lincoln Memorial on the I Have a Dream speech anniversary. Man, I can understand why you guys are so upset with me. That's their territory. Okay, so we see that they're activists and they haven't changed their ways. So I would guess that Cass Sunstein now would like to retract what he said about these guys. Quote, I feel very uncomfortable with their past, but neither of them is thought of as horrible types now. So as far as most of us know, they're legitimate members of the community. Wow. As far as most of us know, they're legitimate members of our society. That's great, Cass. I'm glad you're in a very powerful position. You know, something else bothers me about this, and watchdogs, could you help me with this? 2 years before the election of Barack Obama. 2 years. And the guys who start it are the guys who have the stimulus package all ready to go when the president gets into office. Has health care all ready to go. Has all kinds of stuff to help with the census. All these well-laid plans. And 2 years before they start this student group on Martin Luther King Day. Could you just help with this, watchdogs? Where did the funding come from with SDS? Who is involved in the new SDS? Where'd that come from? They claim now that the new SDS has over 150 chapters at schools all across the country, whose aim is to, quote, build a radical multi-issue organization, and their rally cry is to take back our schools, our communities, our nation. We are going to win because millions of people are stronger than millions of dollars. This is the fight of our life. Who has millions of dollars? Well, these guys have millions of dollars and fight for your life. My gosh. Somewhere Nancy Pelosi should be crying. Because it's not only the violent rhetoric from the 60s, it's the violent rhetoric of the 60s coming straight from the people who actually did the violence and blew stuff up in the 60s in their new organization over here. So what is the new SDS? Founded by the old SDS. What is it currently up to? Well, they were just in Arizona. They were protesting the new immigration bill. Now, the media will have you believe that these protests are just done by regular, everyday citizens who have just had enough with all of that racism from Republicans and conservatives. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Radicals from the new SDS and SDIU and other unions were actually bussed in from out of state to protest. There were eventually 122 arrests. You'd think that the folks in Arizona would be the most upset, wouldn't you? But no. I mean, the people in Arizona, they're the ones that have the kids that are going to be scooped up while eating ice cream, or, you know, when dad gets a parking ticket, somebody's going to come and get him just for being Hispanic. No. In Arizona, the people there support the law in upwards of 60%. So what is that scene that we just saw? Well, it's not real. It's astroturf. I learned that word from Nancy Pelosi. It's unions and SDS. It's organizations bussing people in. Well, let's look at that crowd because, remember, they just hate racism. Did you see the picture on Drudge over the weekend? Here are the protesters running around waving the Mexican flag. Now, why would somebody who loves America just so much, who wants to live here because they love the good old U.S. of A. and gosh, they just want their family to be left alone, why are you waving the Mexican flag? Unless you're waving it in defiance. No, he's waving it because, as we showed you last week, with radicals, it's all about the oppressed. In fact, let's look at the new SDS. The oppressed people are at the forefront of the movements for liberation. Liberation theology. Where have I? Oh, I remember liberation theology. That's what Barack Obama studied in his church.